Social engineering terminologies and techniques. Hackers, ethical hackers, or pen testers use social engineering tactics because it's usually easier to exploit people than it is to discover ways to hack the software. For example, it's much easier to fool someone into giving you their password than it is for you to try hacking their passwords. Social engineering is psychological manipulation of people into performing actions or divulging confidential information. The types of information that you seek can vary, but you usually try to trick the targeted victim into giving you their passwords or bank information or access to their computer to secretly install malicious software that will give you access to their passwords and sensitive information, as well as giving you control over their computers. You usually use the human relations and the inattentions of the people in social engineering attacks. If you have enough information about the company, send a phishing email to the victims as the employer instead of someone they don't know. You won't believe the results. In a social engineering attack, you get the best results if you use the fear and curiosity of the victims. Scare them. There is abnormal traffic from your computer to the others. It's probably a worm trying to spread. Have you ever visited a website that you shouldn't, or downloaded something that you shouldn't trust? Or make them curious. Prepare a CD, drop it next to the victim accidentally, and curiosity killed the cat. Let's explain why the human being is always under attack with the writings of Rick Ferguson, who's the Director of Security Research and Communications at Microsoft. People are always the weakest link in information security. You can deploy all the technology you want, but people simply cannot be programmed and can't be anticipated. As long as an attacker makes their delivery vehicle credible enough, a target is likely to click the link or open the file. The bugs in the human hardware are exploited in various combinations to create attack techniques, some of which are listed on this slide. Let's talk about the most famous techniques briefly. Shoulder surfing is simply the technique used to obtain confidential data such as PIN numbers and passwords by observing the information without getting the victim's attention. For example, by looking over the victim's shoulder. This attack can be performed either at close range by directly looking over the victim's shoulder, or from a longer range by, for example, using a pair of binoculars or similar hardware. Shoulder surfing is likely to be performed best in crowded places because it's easy to observe the information without getting the victim's attention. Dumpster diving, also known as trashing, is another popular method of social engineering. It's briefly looking for valuable things in someone else's waste bin. A huge amount of information can be collected through company dumpsters. Company phone books, organizational charts, company policy manuals, calendars of meetings, events and vacations, system manuals, printouts of sensitive data or login names and passwords, printouts of source code, etc. All of this information can be used to assist a social engineering attack to gain access to the target company's network. The dictionary meaning of tailgating is to drive too closely behind another vehicle, but as a social engineering attack technique, tailgating is seeking entry to a restricted area secured by unattended electronic access control, for example, by an RFID card. In this technique, you simply walk in behind a person who has legitimate access. Following common courtesy, the legitimate person will usually hold the door open for you, or you yourself may ask the employee to hold it open for you. The legitimate person may fail to ask for identification for any of several reasons, or may accept an assertion that the attacker has forgotten or lost the appropriate identity token. You may also fake the action of presenting an identity token or the action of looking through your pockets to find your identity token. During this course, we will see phishing in detail. For now, let's just talk about the concept. In a phishing attack, typically the attacker sends an email that appears to come from a legitimate business, a bank, a credit card company, requesting verification of information and warning of some terrible consequences if it's not provided. The email usually contains a link to a fraudulent web page that seems legitimate, with company logos and content, and has a form requesting everything from a home address to an ATM card's PIN or a credit card number. The basic goals of social engineering are the same as hacking in general: to gain unauthorized access to systems or collect information in order to commit fraud, network intrusion, industrial espionage, identity theft, or to simply disrupt the system or network. You can see different classifications for social engineering attacks. Here, we classify these attacks into 3 groups. Physical social engineering attacks. In this type of social engineering attack, the attacker tries to gather information by being physically present in the social engineering environment. If it's possible, they also observe the people using their persuasion skills or some tools to collect data. Social engineering by phone. Calling the victim. The attacker usually tries to collect some critical information about the victim. In addition, the attacker can try to deceive the victim to visit a malicious website or install a malicious piece of software as well. Computer-aided social engineering attacks. Now, in most cases, this type of social engineering attack is performed as a phishing attack. Phishing is typically carried out by email spoofs or instant messaging. It often directs users to enter personal information at a fake website. Now, the look and feel of that website are identical to the legitimate one, and the only difference is the URL of the website that they're visiting. Just like all other hacking or pen testing types, the steps of the social engineering attacks are reconnaissance, scanning, exploitation, and post-exploitation. In reconnaissance steps, you try to collect everything which will help you to perform a successful attack. Here are some examples of the information you collect. Information about the people who are related to the target company, employees, employers, subcontractors, shareholders, clients, etc. Security measures of the company, so you can look for the evasion techniques. Which internet browser is used mostly? What is the most common version of that browser? If you know this, you can prepare your malicious websites to work with that browser. Like internet browsers, you should be better in collecting the versions of the programs widely used inside the company. Versions of the Java runtime environment, PDF reader, Office tools, etc. Company-sensitive data. If you know the name of the director of the Human Resources Department, you can prepare a phishing email as if it was sent by the director. Exploitation step is the attack time. Call the victims. If you can, redirect the victims' phones to call you. Prepare websites to use the vulnerabilities of the browser widely used in the target company and force the victim to visit the website. Prepare malware and force the victim to open it. Send the malware as an attachment to a phishing email, or in an instant message, or in a promotion CD-ROM distributed in the company, or in a flash drive as a gift to the victim. Post-exploitation is deep diving. The actions of this step are to see how far you can go inside the company, accessing the most sensitive systems and information, creating backdoors for further use, etc. In addition to human weakness, system weaknesses are also used in phishing attacks. You can use the vulnerabilities of web browsers, Java applications, Office documents, web applications to compromise the target systems. Use some realistic scenarios to get the victims to run the malicious software, or prepare malicious websites and deceive the victim to visit these websites so you can collect the sensitive data from the victims. Of course, there will be some security systems used by the target company. You can use some techniques and tricks to bypass them. In general, end-user computers of a company are restricted by security systems to reach the ports except 80 and 443. As you know, these two ports are the default ports of the HTTP and HTTPS. For this reason, you should use the ports 80 or 443 for connection on the attacker side. If the target machine is behind a different private network, or the target machine's firewall blocks incoming connection attempts, then you should consider using a reverse connection. In a reverse connection, the attacker sets up a listener first on his box. The target machine acts as a client connecting to that listener. Security devices can realize there's malware inside the attachments of emails. In this case, try archiving the file several times and protect that archive with a password. Changing the extension of the file, for example, let's take a .zip file extension and change it to .zi underscore. That might be another try to bypass email security measures. If the email content controller blocks the IP data inside the email body, you might consider using URL shorteners. To bypass intrusion detection and prevention systems, IPS, IDS, antivirus systems, use custom payloads instead of existing payloads created by the frameworks like Metasploit. And of course, you should encode the payload before embedding it. To compromise the victim systems, we prepare some malicious software and force the victim to run the malware into their systems, so we can open a back door or steal some data or gain a session, etc. Before talking about the customer payload creation, we need to see a few terms to make the subject clearer. Most likely you already know the terms we'll talk about in this slide. If so, just jump to the next one. Malware. It's a short form of the term malicious software. It's a kind of software that's used to compromise the computer systems. It's an umbrella term used to refer to a variety of forms of hostile or intrusive software, including computer viruses, worms, trojans, ransomware, spyware, adware, scareware, and other malicious programs. It can take the form of executable code, scripts, active content, and other software. Payload, inside malware, is the portion of the malware which performs malicious action. Metasploit Framework is one of the most known terms in the cybersecurity domain. As the open-source sub-project of the Metasploit project, Metasploit Framework is a tool for developing and executing exploit code against the target machine. Even though they're depreciated and removed from Metasploit Framework, I'd like to talk about MSFpayload and MSFencode first. They're depreciated because their abilities are collected into a single tool, MSFvenom. To understand what MSFvenom does, it's better to talk about MSFpayload and MSFencode first. MSFpayload was a command line tool that's used to generate and output all the various types of shellcode that are available in Metasploit. Using MSFpayload, you can create an executable file as well as creating a payload to embed the file. The parameters displayed in the slide give us some more about what the MSFpayload does. Most of the time, one cannot simply use shellcode generated straight out of MSFpayload. It needs to be encoded to suit the target in order to function properly. This can mean transforming your shellcode into pure alphanumeric, getting rid of bad characters, or encoding it for 64-bit target. It can also be instructed to encode shellcode multiple times. Output the shellcode in numerous formats, C, Perl, Ruby, and one can even merge it to an existing executable file. So most of the time, this tool was used in conjunction with MSFpayload. MSFvenom is the Metasploit's standalone payload generator. It's the combination of MSFpayload and MSFencode, putting both of these tools into a single framework instance. That means MSFvenom is a combination of payload generation and encoding. You can do everything that you can do with MSFpayload and MSFencode. You can generate a payload, encode the payload, avoid the bad characters, use a custom template, and more. Let's see how we can create a basic malicious Windows executable using the MSFvenom tool. 64-bit Windows 8 is the victim system. Choose an executable to use as a template. The output malware will be the same size with this template file. I'm going to use putty.exec file as the template. Let's copy putty.exec to Kali to work on it. First, look at the IP address of the target machine here, Kali. You can use WinSCP tool to transfer a file from a Windows system to a Linux system. SCP, Secure Copy, is a means of securely transferring computer files between a local host and a remote host, or between two remote hosts. It's based on the SSH, Secure Shell Protocol. Now, since WinSCP uses SSH protocol, you'll be sure the SSH service is running on Kali. Check the status of the SSH service using service SSH status command. It's already active on my Kali. If it's not running, use service SSH start to start the SSH service in your Kali machine. If you try to log in WinSCP using root user, you may see the access denied message. That means using SSH service with root user is denied in your Kali machine's SSH service configurations. Either change the SSH service config to be able to connect with root user or create a new user to use SSH connections. I choose to create a new user. You can use add user or user add commands on the terminal screen, or users interface to add a new user. Now, I've already added a user before SSH user for this purpose. You can add a similar user to your system. Connect WinSCP using SSH user credentials. Find the exec file at the Windows side. In this example, it's on the desktop of a current user. Copy it to the Kali machine, in here, to the home folder of SSH user. In Kali, use is command in the terminal screen to see if the file is transferred successfully. Now we're ready to create a malicious executable using the putty.exec file as a template. Prepare the appropriate MSFvenom command. The first parameter is -p, which specifies the payload used. You have to find a correct payload according to your target. Don't forget to choose a payload with the correct platform, correct architecture, correct connection method, etc. You can see the available payload using MSFvenom-L payloads command. There are a lot of payloads available, and since the target machine is 64-bit, we can filter the results using grep command with pipe. We use the Windows/x64/meterpreter/reverse_TCP payload for this example. Let's have a pause here and have a small introduction to the world of Metasploit. Metasploit project is the most used penetration testing framework in the world. It can be used to test the vulnerability of computer systems or to break into remote systems. Metasploit was created by H.D. Moore in 2003 using Perl. By 2007, the Metasploit framework had been completely rewritten in Ruby. In 2009, the project was acquired by Rapid7. Now they have a free and open source version, Metasploit Framework, and a commercial version, Metasploit Pro. Its best-known sub-project is the open source Metasploit Framework, a tool for developing and executing exploit code against a remote target machine. The MSF console is probably the most popular interface to the Metasploit Framework, MSF. It provides an all-in-one centralized console and allows you efficient access to virtually all of the options available in the MSF. MSF console may seem intimidating at first, but once you learn the syntax of the commands, you will learn to appreciate the power of utilizing this interface. Meterpreter, short for the Meta Interpreter, is an advanced payload that is included in the Metasploit framework. Its purpose is to provide complex and advanced features that would otherwise be tedious to implement purely in assembly. The way that it accomplishes this is by allowing developers to write their own extensions in the form of shared object DLL files that can be uploaded and injected into a running process on a target computer after exploitation has occurred. Meterpreter and all of the extensions that it loads are executed entirely from memory and never touch the disk. Let's continue to create a malicious executable using the MSFvenom tool. Now the first parameter was the payload. We can choose the platform here, Windows, but since we chose a Windows payload, the tool will already understand the platform. Same as the platform, we can set the architecture x64 using the -arch parameter. Because we use a payload for x64 architecture, the tool will already understand the architecture, so we don't need to use arch and platform parameters in this example. The next parameter is -f to determine the format of the output file. Now you can use MSFvenom -help-formats to see the available formats. We only use the exec in this example. Then specify the template file using a -x parameter with the template file. Name the output file with the -o parameter. Now is the time to define the options of the payload. To see the options of the payload, you can use the -payload-options parameter with the payload. We have to assign the lhost and the lport options of the payload here. Complete the command again, output file format, template file, and output file name. Now assign lhost and lport options of the payload. Lhost is the IP address of the listener machine, in this example our Kali machine. Lport is the port which will be open to listen to the sessions. Hit Enter to create the malware. As you see, no arch is selected. The tool selected x64 from the payload, and no platform is selected. The tool automatically selected Windows from the payload again. To be sure, go to the folder and see the created malware. The attacker should find a way to make the victim accept and run the malware. Let's just copy the malware to the victim's machine at the moment, and suppose that we send it as an attachment to a phishing email. First, let's try to copy the file to the Windows machine while Windows Defender is running. As you can see, Windows Defender recognized the malware. And deleted it in seconds. Can you guess why? Because we used a standard Metasploit payload which is very well known, and Windows Defender recognized it easily. To see the payload in action, let's turn Windows Defender off and send the malware again. As an attacker, we need to listen to capture the sessions of the victims who run the malware. Start MSF console. You'll have a Metasploit Framework shell. Search for the handlers. Use exploit/multi/handler for this example. In Handler, we have to use the same payload that we use in the malware. List the options with Show Options command. Set the listener address and port. Since the default port is the same with the port we assigned in the malware, we can leave it as is. And run the handler, it starts to listen at that moment. Now go back to the victim machine and run the malware. Voila! We got the session from the victim machine. Look at the system info using sysinfo meterpreter command. It's a 64-bit Windows machine. Look at the user ID. Meterpreter has a lot of excellent commands to compromise the victim's machine. Use help command to see some of them. Let's take a screenshot of the victim machine. When we list the currently running processes using tasklist command in the victim machine, we see the malware running. You can kill it using the taskkill command with /PID parameter. Use /F parameter to force it to be killed. As soon as the malware process is killed, the meterpreter session dies as well. Using MSFvenom, you can create more complicated malware. Doing this, you may suppose it will not be easy for the security systems to recognize the malware. Look at the examples seen in the slide. You can use -E parameter to encode the payload. You can use MSFvenom-L encoders to see the list of encoders. With the -I parameter, you can encode the payload several times. In this example, it was 10 times. "-k is used to preserve the template behavior and inject the payload as a new thread. If you use this option, the size of the output file becomes a bit bigger than the template file. But do not forget that you are still using a standard Metasploit payload. Let's take a closer look at the listener. If you use a payload with a reverse connection, also known as a connect back, you, the attacker, have set up a listener first on your box. The victim or target machine acts as a client connecting to that listener, and then finally you receive the session. Exploit/multi/handler module of Metasploit Framework is used to collect and manage multiple sessions from different platforms. You can see the detailed options of the handler using Show Advanced command. If you set exit on session false, the handler continues to listen when an active session is killed. Set the same payload with the malware and set the option of the payload. If you run the handler using the exploit-j command, the handler runs in the background. When a session is opened, a message appears. Use session-l command to list the active sessions. To activate a session, use session-i command with the ID number of that session. You can use background command to send the session background. Use session-k with session ID to kill a session. If you use -k uppercase K parameter, you kill all captured sessions. Creating custom payloads. The payloads of well-known frameworks such as Metasploit are easily recognized by the security systems. The best way to avoid this is to create your own payload. There are open source and free tools to create your own malware and payloads such as Veil, Avoid with a 0 instead of an O, Syringe, TheFatRat, and Empire. Now you will see how to create a custom payload using Veil framework. First, let's install it to our Kali machine. If we Google as Veil Evasion, the first link will be the GitHub page of Veil Evasion. This page redirects us to the GitHub page of Veil 3.0. In the README part of the page, we see the quick installation guide. We simply follow the steps of this installation guide. Install Git if it's not already installed. Create the clone of the Veil 3.0 project. Go to Veil folder. Under the setup folder, run setup.sh script with the -c parameter. And this will take a few minutes. In this period, some install wizards are opened. Don't worry, they're all next finish wizards. Now, let's see the Veil framework in action. Go to the Veil folder and run veil.py script. Use list command to list the available tools. We would like to use the evasion tool, so print use one and hit enter. Veil evasion menu is opened. Use the list command to see all available payloads. There are more than 40 different payloads. Let's use Meterpreter payload, which is using a reverse HTTPS connection. Copy the file name with the full path. We'll use it on the next step. Print use 27 to use the payload we selected and hit Enter. The options of the payload are listed. Change as many options as possible to make the payload more customized. The most important options here are the address and port number of the listener machine, lhost and lport options. Again, listener will be our Kali machine, so assign the IP address of Kali as lhost. Let the lport remain as 4444. To keep the example simple, I'm not going to change any other option at this point. Now we're ready to generate the payload. Use the generate command for this purpose. Give the base name for the output files. To be more meaningful, I'd like to use connection type reverse protocol HTTPS and the port number that uses 4444 in the file name. And last, it's asking the method to create the executable file from the script code. Choose the first one. Malware is ready as a code and as an executable file, plus an RC file which is used to start an appropriate handler that uses the same options with the malware as prepared. Let's transfer the malware to our victim machine using the WinSCP tool. First, I copy the malware to the home folder of the SSH user. You can examine the generated file using Linux file command. Yes, it's Windows executable. Now, go to the victim machine, run WinSCP, and connect to the Kali machine with SSH user. Before copying the malware generated by Veil, let's turn on Windows Defender. Now, while Windows Defender is running, copy the malware to the victim machine. No, Windows Defender cannot recognize the malware. We successfully copied the malware into the Windows 8 system. Now at this point, as the attacker, we need to have a listener because the payload of the malware uses a reverse connection. So go to Kali, use Metasploit RC file which is generated by Veil to create a listener. Print MSFconsole-R and add the RC file name with its full path. Then hit Enter. An HTTPS reverse handler starts on our Kali machine's 4444 port as background job. Now go to the Windows machine and run the malware. A session is opened. Use the sessions-l command to see the open sessions, and the sessions-i1 to enter the open session. Now we have a Meterpreter session on the victim machine, even though the victim machine has a security solution, Windows Defender. Enjoy! Another powerful and easy-to-use tool is TheFatRat. It's an exploitation tool that can help you to generate backdoors and post-exploitation attacks like browser attack DLL files. This tool compiles malware with popular payloads, and then the compiled malware can be executed on Windows, Linux, Mac OS X, and Android. Because it's not embedded into Kali, we need to install the TheFatRat first. At the beginning, we need to download the files of the TheFatRat framework. Clone the Git account of the TheFatRat for this purpose. Wait until the cloning is finished. That may take some time according to your internet connection speed. The files are cloned under the TheFatRat folder. Go into the folder using the cd command. Look at the files using is. Let's run the TheFatRat shell script. Oops, permission denied. Look at the file permissions. Probably it does not have the executive privileges. True. No execute write at all. Make the TheFatRat file executable using chmod, that's chmod, Linux command. Now it has execute writes for all. Now we can run the TheFatRat script. It says we have to run setup.sh script first. We're not going to run setup.sh script all the time, it's just needed to run before the first usage. Like the TheFatRat file, setup.py file does not have execute privileges. Make it executable as well. And run. It installs all the dependent tools necessary for the TheFatRat tool and upgrades the tools. There are a lot of tools that the setup script checks if they are installed and up to date, so be patient, don't be anxious. Installing tool dependencies. Updating Kali repo. Installing MingW32 compiler. At the end of the setup, it asks if you want a shortcut for TheFatRat in the system. That means the setup will add TheFatRat into the path, so you'll be able to run it from anywhere in your terminal. Now we can run the TheFatRat script. It checks all the dependencies at the beginning. It warns us not to upload the output files to VirusTotal. We already know the reason. It shares the files with the antivirus companies. Instead, you can upload it to nodistribute.com to test if it can bypass the antivirus systems. Now we're ready to use the TheFatRat. Let's try to create malware which cannot be detected by the security systems. I'd like to try to create a backdoor with the MSFvenom first. Go to the TheFatRat folder and run TheFatRat script. If you let the tool add a shortcut to the system, you don't need to go to the TheFatRat folder. You can run it from anywhere. It checks all dependent applications and conditions, such as internet connection, at the beginning. Don't upload to VirusTotal warning. Okay, there are several different methods to create backdoors using the TheFatRat. You can create backdoors here using MSFvenom, Fudwin, Avoid, PWNwins, etc. In addition, you can add backdoors into the original Android APK packages. Let's create a malware with a backdoor using the MSFvenom in this example. Type 1 and hit Enter into the main menu. MSFvenom Creator Module menu appears. Now, since our victim's machine's operating system is Windows, I chose here the second option in this menu. It first gives me the IP information of my local machine, then asks for the listener IP address. Thanks for the kindness. Since I use this machine as the listener, I enter its IP address. Asking for the listener port, I'll choose 5555 for this time. Now it wants me to enter the base name for the output files that the tool is going to generate. While trying to find the correct payload and malware, you may need to try a lot of different options. So to be able to recognize which file I generate for this time, I use the day of the month and the time in file names. For this example, since today is the first day of the month and it's 2255, I use 01-22-55 as the file name base. Next step is to choose the payload. Let's choose Windows/meterpreter/reverse_TCP number 3. It uses almost all facilities of MSFvenom. It encodes the payload with 10 iterations with shikata_ga_NAI encoding method first, then encodes with another method 8 times, and 3 other encodings follow. The malicious executable was created. It's in the output folder under the TheFatRat folder. Now, let's go to the victim machine and transfer the file using WinSCP. Connect to your Kali machine. Remember, SCP protocol uses the SSH, so be sure that the SSH is running in Kali. My Kali's SSH is serving from 443. Don't ask why. Okay, we connected. Go to the folder and where our file is. Root, FATRAT, output, and here it is. Drop it and drag to the desktop of the Windows system. But first, let's start Windows Defender and see if our malware is able to avoid it or not. Okay, it's already running. Now let's transfer the malware into the Windows system. Oops, our malware is detected by Windows Defender and deleted in a few seconds. Anyway, there are always some computers which do not have any security protection. Let's examine our malware if it works on them. Go to Settings, Administrator pane, and uncheck the Turn on this app checkbox to disable Windows Defender, and press Save Changes. Now, drag the malware again and drop into the desktop. For running the application in the victim machine, let's think about the hacker side. Are we ready as a hacker? What do we need to connect to the back door if the malware succeeds? Well, sure, we don't have a listener at the moment. Go to Kali machine to start a listener. Start Metasploit Framework console using MSFconsole command. While Metasploit Framework is starting, I look at the information of the backdoor in the terminal where I create it to make sure the payload is the one I used. Why? Because I have to use the exact same payload while creating the listener. MSF started, type use exploit/multi/handler first. And then set the payload that we used in the malware. Look at the options using the show options command. Set the lhost. Again, I use the information of the malware. Set the port, which was 5555 on my malware. Now type exploit to start the handler. Go to the victim machine now and run the malware we copied a few minutes ago. Turn back to Kali, you see that a Meterpreter session is opened. Once again, the victory is ours. But wait a second. Windows Defender on Windows 8 has detected our malware. We should find another way to create an undetectable malware. This time, I'd like to create a malware using PWN-Wins, the option 6. We are now in the main menu of the TheFatRat tool. Type 6 and hit Enter to use PWN-Wins to create the malware at this time. PWN module menu appears. There are different options here to create an exec, batch, or PDF file. I'd like to use the second option to create an executable malware. Now, when I type 2 and hit Enter, it gives the IP information of my system and asks for the listener host. Enter the L host, the IP of your Kali, and L port. This time I use 6666. Use whatever you want. Base name for output files. I use the same format, 01-23-02. Again, I choose the third payload, reverse_TCP, the backdoor is saved to the output folder. Now let's go to the victim machine and transfer the file using WinSCP. The Kali side of WinSCP, we're in the output folder of the TheFatRat application. Before transferring the new malware into the victim machine, be sure that Windows Defender is running. I open the Action Center and turn on Windows Defender. Okay, it's running. I can transfer our new malware now. No, not again. Defender detected our new malware as well. We should try another method. The TheFatRat is very powerful, and I'm sure we can find a way to bypass the Defender. I'll try another method of PWN-Wins, the sixth option of the main menu. This time, I choose the fourth option in PWN-Wins menu. I'll again create a malicious executable with a different method. Inputs are all the same. L host first, then L port. I choose 7777 this time, and the base name of the output files. I chose the reverse TCP as the payload, the third option. And done. The output file is created. Let's go back to the victim machine, refresh the Kali side of WinSCP, and drag the newest malware and SROP into Windows Desktop. As you see at the lower right-hand corner, Windows Defender is running. And it couldn't detect our malware this time. Well done! We overcame it with the first problem, bypassed the security system. Now, the main question is, does the malware work? I mean, do we have the back door? So at this point, we go back to Kali and start a listener. Start the MSF console. Type useExploit/multi/handler to use the handler. Set the payload, the same one we used in the malware. To be sure, I prefer to copy the payload from the TheFatRat terminal and paste it. Set lhost, the IP address of Kali, and lport. Remember, that was 7777. I want to look at the open ports using netstat-tnlp Linux command. 7777 is not in use at the moment. Back we go to MSF Console's terminal and type execute to start the handler. Go to the Windows machine and run the malware by double-clicking on it. Back to the Kali machine, and a new Meterpreter session is open. Now we can say victory is ours. You may face some problems while installing a new tool. I'd like to show you what to do simply on an example case that I faced during the installation of the TheFatRat tool. When I installed and ran the TheFatRat, it gave an error message and I couldn't run the tool. Looking at the logs of the TheFatRat, I saw the error message that says no module named names. Honestly, I have no idea what that is. I opened the Google and typed TheFatRat no module named names. Clicked the first link, which was the issues page of the GitHub account of the TheFatRat. I did what the PeTRPT said and overcame the problem. Embedding malware into the documents. It's very common for malicious software to be embedded in a widely used document, such as a PDF or Office document. Let's look and see what Metasploit Framework has for this purpose. In MSF shell, and you already know how to open the MSF shell, simply type MSF console in the terminal screen of Kali. If you search for Adobe in PDF words, you see that Metasploit Framework has 2 exploits to embed a malware into a PDF file. And thankfully, the ranks of the exploits are excellent, which means they will work very good and stable in the ideal circumstances. Of course, you need an appropriate payload for the exploit. When you look at the options of the exploit using show options command, you see that the target of the exploit is Adobe Reader with versions 8 or 9, which is running Windows, XP, Vista, or 7. When you gather information about the target company, you'll probably find this information: which operating systems are used, which readers are preferred, which versions are used, etc. Suppose that you don't have any clue that the target operating systems and/or readers are used in this company. Still, isn't it worth it to try? Now is the question: can you find any device running an old version of operating system and an old version of the reader? The answer is of course. Do you remember the WannaCry ransomware attacks? The attack affected more than 300,000 computers across 150 countries, including the UK's NHS health systems. The malware was using a vulnerability where Microsoft had already released a patch for it 2 months before the WannaCry attack. But the attack affected hundreds of thousands of computers because they are always out of date. If you can find a few machines that fit these conditions, it might be enough for you to hack the entire company. The next step is to set the options. Set the template PDF file in file name. If you don't, Metasploit Framework will use its own template. Set the output PDF file name. If you don't, Metasploit Framework will name it as evil.pdf. Now set the options of the payload you choose. If you choose a reverse HTTPS interpreter payload like me, set the IP address of the listener, lhost. Set the listener port if you don't want to use the default one, lport. And when you're finished setting your options, you can use exploit or run commands to generate the file. Now you must bring the file and computer users, victims, together. Send the file in a phishing email. Copy the file in flash drives and give them as gifts. Write the file in CDs and spread them in the company if you can, etc. By merging a malicious PDF with another arbitrary PDF file, you can make it more difficult for antiviruses to recognize it. In the first picture, a Windows/Meterpreter/reverse_TCP payload embedded PDF file is scanned in virustotal.com. No obfuscation or customization was performed, so 30 of 47 antivirus programs detected it. In the second pic, a custom payload using Windows/Meterpreter/reverse_HTTPS payload of Metasploit was created by Veil and embedded into the PDF file. 17 of 47 antivirus programs detected the malware. In the third picture, the document used in the second picture was merged with a clean PDF file. In this time, Only 10 of 47 antivirus programs detected the malware. Just like embedding a malicious code into a PDF file, you can easily embed a malicious macro code into an MS Office document such as MS Word. To create a malicious Word document, we should prepare a macro code and the payload which is used by the macro. Let's prepare a malicious Word document using the Metasploit Framework and Veil Framework. The steps of this example will be creating a malicious executable, converting the malware into a macro code which is ready to be embedded into an Office document, creating the Office document, embedding the script code as a macro, and concatenating the payload as text. Starting a listener to listen to the sessions of the victims who open the Office document. Opening the document as a victim. Collecting the session as the attacker. Now let's do it. First, create a malicious executable using Veil. I'll take it faster now because we've already done this before. To remember, please refer to our Creating Custom Payloads with Veil lecture. Choose List in the main menu. Type Use One to use Evasion tool. Type List to list available payloads. Let's use payload 27. Setting the listener host is enough at the minimum. And generate. Give the name initials for the outpost files. Choose the executable creation method. Okay, malicious executable is created. Let's test our malware to see if it's working. Transfer the file to the victim machine. Now here I have a Windows 8 system as victim. I'm going to use the WinSCP tool to transfer the file. And of course we have to find a reasonable way to do it. Phishing, malicious website visit, etc. Copy the malware into the SSH user home folder for ease of use. Run WinSCP. Connect to the Kali machine. And transfer the file to the Windows desktop. Start a handler to collect the session. Go to Kali and start the MSF console with the -r parameter and use the RC file produced by Veil. Handler started is at the background. With the session-l command, we see that no session is in progress at the moment. Run the malicious executable in the Windows system. We now have a valid session of the Windows system. Use the sessions-i session ID command to interact with the session. Our malware is working like a charm. Now let's kill the session for now because this was just a test if the malware is working well. Sessions-k, uppercase K, will kill all the open sessions. Now we'll create a Visual Basic script using our malicious executable file. We're in the Kali machine, so find the location of the exec2 VBA script using locate command in Linux. Go to the folder. And run exec2 VBA Ruby script. Now, the script needs two parameters to run. First, the malicious executable with full path, which will be converted to a macro code. Second, the name of the output file. The script is created. Now is the time to create the malware embedded Word document. Go to the Windows machine, which is the system of the victim, and transfer the micro file using WinSCP. Let's open the .vba file using a notepad. Now, I'm using Notepad++ for this purpose because the .vba file is a bit big and Notepad++ has a much better memory management than the native Notepad application in Windows. There are two parts in the .vba file. The first part is the macro code. The second part is the payload that will be used by the macro to create the meterpreter session. Now start using MS Word and create a new Word document. By the way, do you wonder why I use Windows 8 and Office 2013? Because I have their licenses and no others. Create a macro. Under View tab, select Macros, View Macros, give a name, and click the Create button. I'm using the Word application of Office 2013. If you use a different version, your menus might differ. Please Google it to find the location. Open our .vba file and copy the macro code part and paste it into macro code page. Save the changes and close the page. And we have malicious macro codes inside the document. Now we still have to embed the payload into the document. Go to the .vba file, copy payload data part, and paste it into the Word document. We have quite a big payload, and I confess it's bigger than I expected. This is because we used Veil to create a custom malware, and we chose Meterpreter, which is a complex one. Wait until the paste is finished. It could take 15 to 20 seconds. To make the document seem like a regular document, you can shrink the font size, for example, make it 1. And you can make the font color of the payload white. Then save the file. To succeed in this attack, MS Word application has to be configured to run macro codes. In MS Word, all macros are disabled by default, so you have to convince the victim to enable the macros as well. In File menu, select Options. Select Trust Center. Click Trust Center Settings button and tick Enable All Macros option. Click OK at the lower right corner. Now we have a macro-enabled MS Word. Be sure the handler is running at the moment. Open the Word document we created. It may take some time because the document is a big one. Go to Kali, wait a few seconds, you'll have a new session for the victim system. Congratulations! Another way to compromise the target systems is to send the malware as a browser add-on. You can use Metasploit Framework to prepare malicious Firefox add-ons and serve them from a server. Select the exploit and the payload, then set the options. When you run the exploit, it starts a handler as well as an application server to release the add-on. As soon as the victim allows you to install the add-on, you'll have a session of his or her system. Let's see how to prepare and use malicious Firefox add-ons. In Kali, start the Metasploit Framework using MSF console command in the terminal screen. If you do not necessarily know the exact name of an exploit, you can use search command to find it. Use the exploit with the use command. List the payloads that you can use with this exploit. Show payloads. Let's select a shell payload with a reverse TCP connection. Now look at the options of exploit and payload using the Show Options command. Server host is the server where an application server will be started to serve the add-on. In this example, it's our Kali machine. Server port is the port that the web application is served. You can choose 80, which is the default port of the HTTP protocol. URI path is the path of the payload. Now set the options of the payload. Listener host, again our Kali machine, is in this example. Listener port is 4444 by default. You can change it if you want. Now we are ready to run the exploit. When you run the exploit, a reverse TCP handler on port 4444 and an application server serves on port 8080 is started. Let's test if the application is alive. Copy the URL and paste it in the address bar of the browser. It seems everything is okay. In Windows System, which is the system of the victim, run the Firefox. This is the Firefox version 57. Now we're going to send a phishing email which contains a link to the add-on we prepared. In this example, I use the yopmail.com service to send the phishing email to the victim. Yopmail is the disposable email address service which does not require a sign-up and provides access to any email address in the form of any name you want at yopmail.com. In the attacker system, Kali, prepare the phishing email and send it to the victim. The victim opens the email in his or her Firefox browser, which is the latest version. When the victim clicks the link, a warning message which says Firefox prevented this site from asking you to install software on your system appears. If you click the install link directly in the website, nothing changes. You're not allowed to install the add-on. Starting from version 41, Mozilla decided to allow plugins only if they're signed and verified by Mozilla. But don't worry, you'll probably find systems that use Firefox older than version 41. Let's repeat our test with an older version of Firefox. Download an earlier portable version of Firefox. I chose version 46 for this example. Install it and run. You are now using Firefox version 36. Go to the mail service of the victim. When you click the link, Firefox again prevents the site to ask to install software. In this time, though, clicking the Allow button brings you to the software installation window. Click the Install Now button, you see the message that the installation is successful. Go to the listener now, which is our Kali machine. Looking at the listener terminal windows, you see that a session on the victim's computer is open. Go to the session using session-isessionid command. Now, because we used a shell payload, we have a shell session at this time, not a meterpreter session. And we can use all the commands of the victim's computer. Since it's a Windows system, we can use Windows commands right now. Directory to list the files of the current folder. Who am I to see the active user. ipconfig to see the IP addresses, etc. The first question, what is PowerShell? To give you a better understanding of PowerShell, we should first define what a shell is. In computer science, a shell is a user interface that gives you access to various services of an operating system. A shell can be command line based, or it can include a graphical user interface or GUI. Windows PowerShell is a shell developed by Microsoft for purposes of task automation and configuration management. This powerful shell is based on the .NET framework, and it includes a command line shell and a scripting language. Why PowerShell? PowerShell is a very powerful tool that offers tremendous benefit for querying systems and executing commands, including on remote machines. However, it's easily used for malicious purposes because it falls under the radar of traditional endpoint security products. PowerShell gives the bad guys a lot of power because it's part of the native Windows operating system, which makes it difficult for security teams. What is Empire Project? With their own words, Empire is a pure PowerShell post-exploitation agent built on cryptologically secure communications and a flexible architecture. Empire implements the ability to run PowerShell agents without needing PowerShell.exec. Rapidly deployable post-exploitation modules ranging from the keyloggers to mimikatz and adaptable communications to evade network detection, all wrapped up in a usability-focused framework. Since the Empire project is not embedded into Kali, we need to download and install it. PowerShellEmpire.com is the official site of the team who created the Empire project. It's a very handy website full of documents and demos. However, as of this video capturing, it's in its early days of 2018. The documents need to be updated according to the latest version of Empire Project. The link at the bottom of the homepage, Get Empire, brings you to the GitHub page of Empire Project. I recommend you read the README section of the page for details. From the clone or download buttons at the upper right, copy the URL to clone the project. Open a terminal window, write git clone, paste the URL, and hit enter. Now the files of the Empire project are being downloaded to our local. When the download finishes, go to the Setup folder under the Project folder, Empire, using cd Linux command. Run /install.sh. The project and all the required packages are being installed in this moment. Be patient. It could take a few minutes. Now it asks for a password to negotiate with the server. You can enter a password, or if you hit enter directly, it'll generate a random password for you. As soon as you hit enter, the setup is complete. Now use the cd Linux command to go back to the project home folder. And type /empire to start the tool. Welcome to the Empire. Let's see the Empire in action. Empire has its own shell-like command line interface. As of this video capturing, Empire has 282 modules. First, let's start by typing the help command to display the help. Now I'm going to show you how to use Empire project step by step. First step, create a listener. Listeners in Empire are the channels which receive connections from our target machines. It's similar to the listeners in Metasploit Framework. Before we do anything in Empire, we need to start the listeners. Type listeners to enter the listener management state. As you see, the shell prompter changes as Empire:listeners. Once we move to the listener's management state, we can see its options by typing the help command. Let's take a look at some of the commands of the listener state. Info is to display information about the active listener. Now you think it's the same as the show options command of Metasploit. Kill is to kill a particular listener. List is to list all the active listeners. Use listener is to use one of the listener modules of Empire. Use stager is to use one of the available stagers. We'll see that on the next step. Let us now look at how to start a listener module in Empire. Type the use listener command, put a space character, and press tab twice to see the listeners available in Empire. There are 7 different listeners listed. Let's use the HTTP listener as an example. Type use listener HTTP and press enter. Now the same as with the Linux bash, you can use the tab button to complete any particular keyword. Here, press tab in the middle of the word instead of writing the entire word. Again, the shell prompt has changed as Empire:listeners/HTTP. Help command now displays the commands of this state. As you see, some of the commands are the same with the previous menu, but there are some different commands here. The info command shows the options of the particular type of listener we want to start. The set command is used to assign the values of the options. Similarly, the unset command is used to clear these values. Every listener requires certain options to be set. For example, when you run info command, you see that the HTTP listener needs the host and port values to be configured. An important warning here, in Empire, commands are case sensitive. That means if the name of an option is name with an uppercase N, you have to use its exact same style. Name with a lowercase has a different meaning for Empire. Default values are set for the options. IP addresses of your current system is set as the host, and 80 is set as port. The default name of the listener is set as HTTP. Change the values if you want using set command. I want to change the listener name as my HTTP listener. When all options are set, we can start the listener using the execute command. When we go back to the main menu using the main command or back command twice, we see that we have now one active listener. The second step is using stagers. Now, in here it's better to explain the stager and stage concepts of the exploitation world. Stagers set up a network connection between the attacker and the victim and are designed to be small and reliable. Stages are payload components that are downloaded by stager modules. The various payload stages provide advanced features with no size limits such as Meterpreter, VNC, injection, or shell. Stagers in Empire are used to set the stage for the post-exploitation activities. They're similar to payloads, which are used to create a connection back to Empire. Type use stager, put a space character, and press tab twice to see all of the available stagers. Let's start the launcher stager as an example. A stager will generate a command ready to launch in command line terminal CMD. Type use stager multi/launcher command to load the stager. Shell prompter changes as the name of the stager we chose. If you type help now, you see the commands of the stager state. Use generate or execute to generate a stager. Set and unset to set and unset values to particular options. Interact to interact with a particular agent which is normally used when there are multiple listeners. Type info to see the information about the stager and the options to be set. Now let's set the options to be able to generate the stager. We need to set a listener in order for the stagers to be able to communicate with Empire. In the last step, we already created a listener. Let us set this listener for our launcher stager. Type set listener my HTTP listener for this purpose. If you gave another name to your listener, use that instead of my HTTP listener. And once again, don't forget that Empire is case sensitive. Leave the other options as default for now. Run execute or generate command to generate the stager. The stager has created a command ready to be launched in the command line terminal. The third step, using agents. When we set the stager to our target system and the machine engages with it, we get a reverse connection back. This is known as an agent. In our example, let's run the generated command into the victim's command line terminal window. Now, there are a few different methods to start a terminal screen in Windows OS. You can press Windows plus R to start the Run dialog box, type Command in the dialog box, and hit Enter. Or you can type Command CMD in Windows Start menu. Windows will find you the tool. Or you can try to find the Command Prompt tool inside the All Applications menu, which I honestly don't remember. Copy the generated command, paste it in the command prompt of the victim's system. Command prompt disappears when the command is executed. Go back to Kali. As you can see, we have a new agent. Type main to go back to the main screen of Empire. We see that we have an agent. Type agents to go to agents. Use interact command with the agent ID. You're now in a session of the victim system. Type help to see the commands you can use. For example, type info to see the entire information of the victim system. Or type SC to take a screenshot, etc. Okay, let's have another example in the Empire project. This time we're going to create a macro to prepare a malicious Office document. At this point we already have a listener, so I jump to the stager generation step. Type use stager, put a space character, and press tab twice to see all of the available stagers. Now we use Windows macro to create a macro which will open a back door into the victim's machine. Type use stager Windows/macro and hit Enter. Type info to see the options. We have to set the listener. Now type set listener my HTTP listener, or if you gave it another name to the listener, type it. Leave the other options with the default values. Run execute command to generate the macro. The macro is generated in the temp folder, TMP folder, with the name of macro. Let's go to the temp folder and look at the file using cat linux command. Select and copy the macro code. Now it's time to create the malicious Office file using this macro code. We're now in a Windows system. I'm going to create a Word document. Open a new document from the View tab. Open Macro window. Paste the macro code that we copied in Kali. Save and close the macro window. If the macro code is not in the clipboard of your victim Windows machine, if you cannot paste the macro code in Windows system, copy-paste action may not be allowed by your virtualization platform, VMware, VirtualBox, etc. Don't worry, there are lots of ways to bring the macro code in. For example, you may change the configuration of your virtualization environment to allow copy-paste between the virtual machines. Another method is sending the code to yourself in an email, so you can open the email in the victim's machine and copy the macro code. Now, of course, to be able to see the effects of our code, the macro has to be enabled in the victim's Office tool. Now, I'm using Office 2013. To enable macros, I follow the path File, Options, Trust Center Settings, and click Enable All Macros, then the OK button. Save the Word document on the desktop and close. Now the document has the macro code inside, and the macros are enabled in the Office tool. Now I want to touch on two topics here. First, as you can see in the right-hand corner of the screen, I'm going to open the malicious document while Windows Defender is running. So we'll see if we can bypass the security systems or not. Second, of course, we don't expect the victim to prepare the file himself. We are testing the document that we prepared. Sending it to victims and convincing them to open the files is another case. Now open the Word document. Seems everything's fine. Something abnormal doesn't appear. Let's go to our Kali system. As you see, we have a new agent initialized. Go to the main menu using main command. There was one agent at the beginning. Now we have two of them. Go to agent state using agents command. The second one is our new session, which started when the victim opened the Word document. Use interact command with the agent name to activate the session. Now, the victim machine is in your hands. There are tons of applications that require Java to work. This is why Java Runtime Environment is installed on almost every computer. According to Oracle, 97% of enterprise desktops run Java. 89% of desktops or computers in the USA run Java. 3 billion mobile phones run Java. 100% of Blu-ray disc players ship with Java. And 125 million TV devices run Java. In the 2010s, there were several numbers of exploitable Java vulnerabilities found. Most of them were allowing the attackers to execute remote codes in the victim's systems. Because almost every IT system has Java, and several critical zero-day vulnerabilities have been found in the recent years, exploiting Java vulnerabilities on the client side is quite popular. When you search for Java in Metasploit Framework, you find a lot of exploit written for Java vulnerabilities. Some of them are seen in the slide. Let's see one of them in detail. The exploit module displayed in the slide abuses the JMX classes from a Java applet to run arbitrary Java code. Additionally, this module bypasses default security settings introduced in Java 7 Update 10 to run unsigned applets without displaying any warning to the user. To use the exploit, run use command with the full exploit name. Set the options of the exploit and run it using exploit or run command. Same as the Firefox add-on exploit, it starts to serve an application on the server SRV host at the port SRV port with a path given in the URI path option. At the same time, it starts a reverse TCP handler to collect the captured session on the same system with SRV host at the port 4444. Did you notice that we didn't set a payload for the exploit? By default, the exploit uses java/meterpreter/reverse_TCP payload. Social Engineering Toolkit, SET. The Social Engineering Toolkit, SET, was created by Trusted SEC. It is an open-source Python-driven, specifically designed tool to perform advanced attacks against the human element. It's a standard tool in a penetration tester's arsenal. The attacks built into the toolkit are designed to be targeted and focused attacks against a person or organization used during a pen test or ethical hacking. You can download SET from Trusted SEC's GitHub and use any platform you want, and it's already embedded in Kali and ready to use. The tree on the slide shows the attack types under the Social Engineering Attacks branch of the main menu SET. And the green layer shows the methods of website attack vector options. I mean, there are many more methods and attack vectors in the toolkit. Let's see one of the attack methods of the Social Engineering Toolkit, Credential Harvester Attack. In this attack, first we should choose a website which has a login sequence that the victims often visit. The toolkit prepares the clone of that website and serves it at the server. Our trap is ready and starts to collect the inputs of the victims. When a victim visits our website, he or she will face exactly the same page that he or she visits often. The victim enters the credentials and we collect them. Let's do it together. Social Engineering Toolkit is installed and ready to use in Kali. It's defined in the path so you can start the toolkit anywhere using set toolkit command. Choose Social Engineering Attacks option in the main menu, that's number 1. As the attacked vector, select Website Attack Vectors, that's number 2. And our attack method is the Credentialed Harvester, number 3. This menu is the list of the phishing website creation methods. Let's choose Site Cloner, number 2. We need to have a website where the victims visit and log in often. I want to find a login page for the NHS. Googling for NHS and login keywords, email.nhs.net seems good. Postback IP address is used for what IP the server will post to. Now this is the URL to clone. I use email.nhs.net. The version of the toolkit I use is 7.6.1, and when I want to clone a website, I get a zip importer error and the method does not continue. When I Google the error message, I found a solution for this problem in the Issues section of the GitHub page on the Social Engineering Toolkit. Go to /etc/ctoolkit/set.config file. In line 95, turn off to on. And save the file before closing. Now run the SE Toolkit again. Follow the menus again, 1, 2, 3, 2. Enter the IP address of our Kali machine as postback IP address. Enter email.nhs.net as the URL to clone. The same error message is here again, But now the program continues and asks for starting Apache's server if it's not running at the moment. Answer Y for yes, and the trap is ready. The site's cloned, Apache's server is started, and the credential harvester is listening to the inputs now. As the victim, when we visit the malicious website, we will see exactly the same page with email.nhs.net. Enter the username and password, click Sign In. Our malicious website redirected the victim to the original page, email.nhs.net. It's a good idea. The victim will not be in any doubt about the fraud. Turn back to the attacker system, Kali, and you'll see the credentialed information entered by the victim. You can leave this command window. Everything is still running and logging under your web directory path /var/www/html. To make the credential harvester attack more realistic, you can use some tricks. For example, you can use the domain name of the target company as a subdomain name of your registered domain name. Suppose that you're the owners of xyz.com domain, and the domain name of the target company is thecompany.com. You can prepare a URL like thecompany.xyz.com. Another way to make the attack more realistic is to buy a domain name similar to the domain of the company. For example, if the target domain is thecompany.com, you can try to buy the company with a double N. You can also use the URL Crazy tool to find out the alternative website names. If you're an insider, you can try to match the domain name with your IP address to redirect the victims to your servers using DNS spoofing. Sending fake emails. The more realistic the phishing email we send, the more likely the attack will be successful. For this reason, it's better to make the email look like it's coming from the real source. For example, if you're acting as a job finder site, make the phishing email seem as if it's sent by one of the legitimate job sites. There are several fake email services. MKai's Mailer is one of the free online fake mailer services, which has its own reverse DNS record. If you send an email with MKai's Mailer, it will probably be flagged as spam because MKai's Mailer is a well-known service. Even though the mail is flagged as spam, it still looks like it's being sent by the legitimate job site. The victim has to investigate the headers of the email to understand if it's really sent by the job site or not. If you look at the headers, you'll see that the email is sent by mkai.cz, not by jobsite.co.uk. So if you've got a suspicious email, don't forget to investigate the headers before opening it. Social engineering attacks by phone is also called vishing, where the word is a combination of voice and phishing. Vishing attacks are highly effective if you've done your homework and have all the relevant information, and you already know where you get the information in the first place. This is where the information gathering phase comes into play. You need to have a realistic scenario first. Before you call the victim, you have to be very well prepared. Who are you? Where are you calling from? What's your expertise? What's the subject? What do you want from the victim? The more you prepare, the more the victim will trust you. There are some tricks to being more realistic. For example, if you're in the role of a call center staff, it's better to have a background voice as if some other staff are talking with other customers or clients. It's a very effective way to frighten the victim. Your computer is blocking $1 million transaction to the company. We have to fix it immediately. Have you recently visited websites that you should not have visited? Here then is the real-world social engineering test that we performed in one of our pen tests. According to the scenario, We are an IT department staff and want to make sure if all the employees got the critical security update of the corporate email service. The critical points of the attack are as follows. First, introduce yourself as one of the personnel from the IT department. Now, at information gathering and reconnaissance phase, if you found the real names working in the IT department, use one of these names. But prepare yourself. The victim may know the person whose name you're using. If you don't know anyone in the IT department, choose a common name. What's the most common name in that country? Second, make the victim nervous about his or her mistake. The words critical and security are important. You should have got the update up to now, but you haven't? Third, gain the trust of the victim. Don't share any information with me or anyone else. Security is important. Give the IP address of your malicious website. Because you share the URL on the phone, don't try to find a URL similar to the company's webmail service. IP is good, but it's not understandable. Since the victim manages the steps him or herself, he or she has no doubt that the operation is secure. The victim visits our website, which looks like the webmail service of the company, and downloads our backdoor as the security patch. The success rate of this test was 90%. In this course, you learned the terminologies and definitions of social engineering, basic social engineering techniques, social engineering types and the steps of the social engineering tests, how to bypass security measures, how to create malware, how to create custom payloads to use inside the malware, how to embed the malicious code into the documents, the Social Engineering Toolkit, and social engineering via phone, also known as vishing. Hello and welcome to this Information Gathering over the Internet lecture. My name is Muharrem Aydin. I am a computer engineer and cybersecurity expert, and I'll be your instructor in this lecture. In this lecture, you'll learn the types and methods of information gathering, the classic information gathering methods such as whois and banners, how to use search engines to gather information, how to gather information about the people who are related to a target company, how to find more from the archives, and the tools to help you collect valuable information about the target company. The first phase in security assessment is focused on collecting as much information as possible about the target. Information gathering is one of the most critical steps of hacking or penetration testing. The more information is gathered about the target, the more it becomes possible to customize the attack. In this section, we're going to answer these questions. What can we learn about the target over the Internet? How can we collect the information? Where can we find the information about the target? Before we begin, we should answer a basic question. What is the target? Target is the company, institute, network, system, or even a person that we want to hack. An application, a person, a system. We'll try to collect every bit of information that helps us to hack the target. There are two types of information gathering. The first type is passive information gathering. In this type of information gathering, you don't want to be detected by the target. In this regard, you don't use tools that send traffic to the target, neither from your host nor an anonymous one across the Internet. Passive information gathering activities may include, but are not limited to, identifying IP addresses and subdomains, identifying external or third-party sites, identifying people who are related to the target, identifying technologies, identifying content of interest, identifying vulnerabilities. You can collect information passively from web archives, mail archives, social networks, search engines, etc. A second type is active information gathering. In this type of information gathering, you scan on the target systems. Active information gathering requires more preparation for the attacker pen tester because it leaves traces which are likely to alert the target or produce evidence against him in the course of a possible digital investigation. There are a lot of places you can collect data over the Internet. Web archives. Suppose that a sensitive data was published accidentally. A few days later, the admins realize the mistake and remove the data from the website. But what if someone has already archived that website with the sensitive data? Scanning the ports and services, you can find the ports accessible over the Internet. The target company opened that service, intentionally or unintentionally. Using search engines, you can find enormous pieces of useful information. Beyond the known weaknesses, leave traces on the websites, on headers, titles, URLs. You can easily find these traces using search engines. You can find some useful information about the target company on social networks, for example, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Suppose the target company is looking for a new system admin to hire. Look at the job sites or LinkedIn. What would you see? The information about systems that are used in the target company? Or tools and programs used to monitor those systems? Look at the experts working for a target company carefully. Do they subscribe to forums or mail lists? What kind of problems do they share on this forum or these mail lists? Asking for help about Java version 9 or Hibernate framework. You take and publish pictures of your secret disaster recovery center on your website. You're sure that it's impossible to understand from the picture where the center is. Are you sure? What about the metadata of the picture? Did you choose the location info? Whois is a web application used to get information about the target website, such as the administrator's email address, details about the registration. Whois is a very large database and contains information of approximately all the websites. It can be searched by domain name or an IP address block. The protocol stores and delivers database content in a human-readable format. You can use the Whois command of Linux systems to get the Whois query results. In addition, there are some websites that help you to get the Whois query results. You see some of them on the slide, and Whois Service of Domain Tools websites is also given as an example. If we analyze the banners of the response sent by the web systems of the target company, we can find some detailed information about the server, the technology used, etc. We send a request to port 80 of nhs.uk website using Telnet services and get the response. Look at the server and the X-powered by headers. We learned that the application server of nhs.uk is Microsoft-IIS version 8.0 and ASP.NET. It's used to develop the web application. But hold on, are we sure? Could the information be fake? While the search engines are the most typical examples of crawlers, and they let us run queries on the websites, search engines are very useful to collect information about the target in depth. Using search engines, you can find enormous pieces of useful information about the target company. Names of the employees, accessible services of the systems, files, or folders which contain sensitive data, login pages. Beyond the known weaknesses, these leave traces on the website, on headers, titles, URLs. You can easily find these traces using search engines. Google hacking, also named Google dorking, is a computer hacking technique that uses Google Search and other Google applications to find security holes in the configuration and computer code that websites use. Google hacking involves using advanced operators in the Google search engine to locate specific strings of text within search results. Some of the more popular examples are finding specific versions of vulnerable web applications. Some of the advanced operators of Google search engines are shown in the slide. You can see the details of advanced search in Google at google.com/advanced_search. You can find a lot of specific queries on exploit-db.com/google-dorks. Using these queries, you can discover web application vulnerabilities, files containing username and/or passwords, sensitive folders, web services, error messages that disclose sensitive information, log or backup files, devices such as printers or CCTV cameras that are accessible over the net, and more. For example, you can find a username and password list from front page servers by writing the keywords shown on the slide in the Google search field. Here, there are a few examples to show how we can use Google Advanced Search to find valuable information. For example, if we do a search with the words inurl:co.uk and inurl:admin, we can find administrative panels of the websites which have co.uk superdomain. Originally created by Johnny Long of Hackers for Charity, the Google Hacking Database, GHDB, is an authoritative source for querying the ever-widening reach of the Google search engine. In the GHDB, you'll find search terms for files containing usernames, vulnerable servers, and even files containing passwords. When the Google Hacking Database was integrated in the exploit database of offensive security, the various Google docs contained in the thousands of exploit entries were entered into the GHDB. The direct mapping allows penetration testers to more rapidly determine if a particular web application has a publicly available exploit. There are some tools to help you use a GHDB and more. SiteDigger is one of them. When Foundstone was acquired by McAfee, it's now published as one of the free McAfee tools. McAfee Foundstone SiteDigger is an automatic tool which helps you run the queries of GHDB on the target website. In addition, Foundstone has its own database like GHDB, and it's called FSDB, the Foundstone Database. SiteDigger is a native Windows application and requires .NET Framework version 3.5. Simply select the queries, enter the site or domain name, and press Scan. Search Diggity is the primary attack tool of the Google Hacking Diggity project. It is Bishop Fox's MS Windows GUI application that serves as a front end to the most recent version of our Diggity tools. Google Diggity is the traditional Google hacking tool. Bing Diggity is Bing equivalent of the Google hacking tool. BHDB 2.0 is the new Bing hacking database, now as effective as Google GHDB. Bing Link from Domain Diggity is Bing footprinting tool based on offsite links. Code Search Diggity is the open source code vulnerability scanning tool. DLP Diggity is data loss prevention scanning tool. Flash Diggity is Adobe Flash security scanning tool. Malware Diggity is malware link detection tool for off-site links. Port Scan Diggity is the passive port scanning via Google. Shodan Diggity is an easy interface to Shodan's search engine. Bing Binary Malware Search is to find malware via Bing's indexing of executables. Not in My Backyard Diggity is to find your info easily in third-party sites. When you run Search Diggity, you see all Diggity tools as separate tabs. Let's see Google Diggity first. Select the queries you want. You can select all the queries by ticking the root object, or you can tick the nodes one by one. Go to Sites/Domain/IP Ranges section and add the target websites. In Search Diggity, you can scan using proxies. This is to help you avoid bot detection of search engines. In the Settings section, you can arrange the speed of querying. To avoid bot detection, scan as slowly as possible. When you start the scan, you will see that Google detects bot activity and blocks your queries, so Search Diggity pauses the scan for 15 minutes. Now let's see Bing Diggity. Same as Google Diggity, you can add target websites on site/domain/IP ranges. Let's slow down the scan at this time on the settings section. Select the queries you want and start the scan. Bing detects the bot activity as well as Google, but it takes a few minutes. You can collect some results in this period. Shodan is a search engine for Internet-connected devices. Shodan gathers information about all devices directly connected to the Internet. If a device is directly hooked up to the Internet, then Shodan queries it for various publicly available information. The types of devices that are indexed can vary tremendously, ranging from small desktops up to nuclear power plants and everything in between. How is it different from Google? The most fundamental difference is that Shodan crawls the Internet, whereas Google crawls the World Wide Web. However, the devices powering the World Wide Web only make up a tiny fraction of what's actually connected to the Internet. Shodan's goal is to provide a complete picture of the Internet. You can use the search parameters displayed in the slide. Country. Use the country code you want to look for. For example, use GB for Great Britain, US for United States, etc. City. Filters the results according to the specified city. Geo searches in a given location. Hostname filters the results according to the host or domain name given. Net searches in given IP or subnet range. OS filters the results according to the operating system. Port searches for specific ports. Before, after filters the results according to the date. Show the results which are before or after the date given. As a plus, you can see the current Shodan scans on ics-radar.shodan.io. Let's try to find out the accessible Cisco device interfaces in Great Britain. In the search box, search for Cisco and last modified words. Use country. Search the parameters with the GB code. Now you can use the country code in double quotes, otherwise don't let any space occur between the country, parameter, and GB code. When you start the search, you'll see the results in a few seconds. Surf on the results. You will probably face the login pages of Cisco interfaces. You've already found something. You can perform, for example, a brute force attack on the login page. If you're luckier, you can find a Cisco Device Manager interface like the one seen on the slide. People who are related to the target company are always one of the most important resources to collect information. Here's a stunning example. In September 2017, The Guardian reported that Deloitte suffered a cyber attack that breached the confidentiality of its clients and 244,000 staff, allowing the attackers to access usernames, passwords, IP addresses, architectural diagrams for businesses, and health information. A developer working for Deloitte as an outsource put the credentials to GitHub so anyone who visits his GitHub account could see the credential to access the critical systems of Deloitte. Now, you think this single example is enough to show that searching for people who are related to target company is one of the most important parts of information gathering? In which social network platforms do they have accounts? What do they share? Etc. While you're collecting the information about the target company, you're going to find the people who work for it. You can find more about those people using PIPL.com or Pipl website. With the world's largest people search engine, Pipl is the place to find the person behind the email address, social username, or phone number. Pipl is a people search engine that tries to be a little different. Rather than just go off and hunt for email addresses, this tries to search through the deep, invisible, hidden web to return contents that other search engines are going to miss. The interface is simple. Type in the name, email address, social username, or phone number, optionally city, state, and/or country, then let it go to see what it'll find. If you find usernames or nicknames while collecting data about the target company, you should investigate if the username or nickname is used in social networks. Instead of trying the social network platforms one by one, you can use CheckUsernames.com's website. CheckUsernames.com searches the given username on 160 social networks. Go to the social network platforms where the username or nickname exists. Look at the profile of the user to learn more about the person from the target company. Now, if you somehow got the password of a person from the target company, you can try the password in social network platforms. If the person used the same username or password in any social network platform, most people do, you can compromise that account. Now, attention here, try the username and password values to compromise the social network platform accounts only if you are allowed to do it. Even though the penetration test agreement between the company and you allow it, in most countries, you're not allowed to do this. It's a good approach to look at the archives or backups of the systems. You'll probably find some valuable data in those archives. The Internet Archive is a San Francisco-based nonprofit digital library with the stated mission of universal access to all knowledge. It provides free public access to collections of digitized materials, including websites, software applications and games, music, movie, videos, moving images, and nearly 3 million public domain books. Web.archive.org is the archive of the website served by Internet Archive Library. Simply, write down the URL of the target website. You'll see a timetable. If you select a year from the timetable, you'll see the archive dates of the target website in details. On the side, you see the date in which the target website is captured, there in green circles. Suppose that a sensitive data was published on the target website accidentally. A few days later, admins realized the mistake and removed the data from the website. But what if someone has already archived that website with the sensitive data? Select a year, click a date which is in the green circle. You'll see an old version of your target website. That's what the NHS.UK website looked like on the 1st of May 2010. Footprinting, also known as reconnaissance, is the technique used for gathering information about computer systems and the entities they belong to. To get this information, a hacker might use various tools and technologies. FOCA, Fingerprinting Organizations with Collected Archives, is a tool used mainly to find metadata and hidden information in the documents it scans. These documents may be on web pages and can be downloaded and analyzed with FOCA. It's capable of analyzing a wide variety of documents, with the most common being Microsoft Office, OpenOffice, or PDF files. These documents are searched for 3 possible search engines: Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo. Here's how you can download and install FOCA. You can download FOCA from the 11 Paths website that is seen on this slide. FOCA is open source. You can download all the sources as well as the executable binary from github.com/11paths/FOCA. However, this version requires SQL Server Express installed on the host machine. So I prefer to download and use the previous version of FOCA, which requires .NET Framework version 3.5 only. It's a portable version, so you don't need to install it. Download the zip file, extract it, go to the bin folder, and run foca.exec file. That's it. To work with FOCA, start a new project using Project button on the upper left corner. Give the project a name, enter the website, and choose the folder to save the results to. When you finish filling the fields, click the Create button to create a new project. After creating a new FOCA project, we can start a network scan. From the tree at the left side, select Network Node. Now select the search types. The search types listed on the panel are Web Search, you can choose whether Google or Bing, DN Search, Dictionary Search to perform DNS search using a dictionary, IP Bing to serve the domain names hosted on the same IP address, Shodan and RobTex queries, and click the Start button to start the scan. Now we can collect some documents published by the target domain to collect their metadata. From the tree at the left side, select Metadata node. You're supposed to see a panel similar to the one which is seen on the slide. Select the document types you want to collect, and click the Search All button to start the document search. You can see the documents found under Metadata node of the tree. You should download the documents to be able to extract the metadata. Right-click the documents you want to download from the menu. Select Download. Now you can extract the metadata of the downloaded documents. You can understand if a document is downloaded from the Download column of the table. Select the documents that you want to collect the metadata. Right-click and select Extract Metadata from the menu. You'll see the results under the Metadata node of the tree. Let's see FOCA in action. Find the 11 Paths FOCA website. On the website, you see a download button which brings you to the GitHub page of 11 Paths. You can find the latest release version of FOCA under FOCA Releases folder. It requires SQL Server Express installed on the host machine. Go back to the 11 Paths website. You can find a link to the previous version of FOCA. Read and accept the EULA and download the FOCAPro.zip file. Extract the zip file. Go to bin folder and run foca.exec file. On the Project menu, select New Project to create a new project. Fill the boxes in carefully. And then click Create. Save the project file for further usages. Now we can start a new scan. Select the network node from the tree. Select the search types. On the dictionary search panel, you have to choose a valid dictionary. The default path is probably not valid. You can find a valid dictionary inside the DNS dictionary folder, which is under the bin folder where you found the foca.exec file. Click the Start button to start the scan and let the scan continue for a couple of minutes. Let's collect the documents from the target website and extract their metadata. Select the metadata node from the tree. Select the document types you're interested in. and click Search All button to find the documents. Let the search continue for a couple of minutes. Select the documents that you want to collect the metadata. Right-click and select Download. Select the downloaded documents, right-click, and select Extract Metadata at this time. Look at the nodes under the metadata node of the tree, and you will see the metadata extracted from other downloaded documents. You can examine the metadata of each document one by one, or you can find valuable data summarized under the metadata summary node. Usernames of the owners of the documents, operating system where the document is created, email addresses collected from the metadata of the documents, and more. Developed by Edge Security, the Harvester is a command line program written in Python, which is to gather emails, subdomains, hosts, employee names, open ports, and banners from different public sources like search engines, PGP keys, and Shodan computer databases. You can download the Harvester from its GitHub page, https://github.com/Laramies, that's LARAMIES/the It's also embedded in Kali Linux. When you run the script with no parameters, you can see the usage options. One of the usages of the Harvester tool is the harvester-d domain name -l result limit -b data source. When the script finishes its job, you can see the results: emails and hosts found. Recon-NG is a full-featured web reconnaissance framework written in Python, complete with independent modules, database interaction, built-in convenience functions, interactive help, and command completion. Recon-NG provides a powerful environment. Recon-NG has a look and feel similar to the Metasploit Framework, reducing the learning curve for leveraging the framework. Recon-NG is designed exclusively for web-based open-source reconnaissance. If you want to exploit, you can use the Metasploit Framework or any other exploitation tool. You can download the Recon framework on the website seen on this slide, and it's already embedded and ready to use in Kali Linux. When you run Recon-NG script, you'll end up with a shell-like interface. Now you can use Recon-NG commands. Type help to see the available commands. Type show modules to see the available modules. As you can see, there are a lot of modules. You can use search commands to find the modules we need. For example, we can type search XSS to find the module which is aimed to find out XSS vulnerabilities. Type use keyword with the module name to use the module. In this example, let's use recon/domains-vulnerabilities/XSSED module. To learn more about the module, type show information. This module checks XSSED.com website for XSS records associated with the domain. Type show options to see the parameters of the module. Set the source parameter value typing. Set source www.nhs.uk command. Type run to run the module. In this example, we found an XSS vulnerability for nhs.uk website was published in 2008. Even though we're almost sure it was fixed years ago, it's better to look and see if the vulnerability still exists. Maltego is an interactive data mining tool that renders directed graphs for link analysis. The tool is used in online investigations for finding relationships between pieces of information from various sources located on the Internet. The focus of Maltego is analyzing real-world relationships between information that is publicly accessible on the Internet. This includes footprinting Internet infrastructure as well as gathering information about the people and organizations who own it. Maltego can be used to determine the relationships between the following entities: people, names, email addresses, and aliases; groups of people, social networks; companies; organizations; websites; Internet infrastructure such as domains, DN names, net blocks, and IP addresses; affiliations; documents and files. Connections between these pieces of information are found using open source intelligence, Osint techniques, by querying sources such as DNS records, Whois records, search engines, social networks, various online APIs, and extracting metadata. Maltego provides the results in a wide range of graphical layouts that allow for clustering of information, which makes seeing relationships instant and accurate. This makes it possible to see hidden connections, even if they're 3 or 4 degrees of separation apart. You can download the Maltego CE, that's the Community Edition, from www.paterva.com, and it's embedded in Kali Linux. Let's see Maltego in action. Go to Kali Linux and open a terminal screen and type Maltegos, that's Maltegoce, to run Maltego Community Edition Embedded. First, we choose a machine to run. There are different machine options specified for different purposes. For example, there's a Twitter Digger machine to work on a Twitter account and analyze the tweets. Let's choose Footprint L1 machine this time, which is a fast and basic footprint for the target domain. The second step is to specify the target domain. When we click the Finish button, it's going to start to collect data. Now, in the Community Edition of Maltego, the results are limited to 12 entries. It shows the results in graph mode. We can zoom out to see the entire picture or zoom in to focus on specific results. Now, if you select a node and right-click on it, you can see all the transforms you're able to run for that node. Transforms are grouped according to their purposes. You can expand a group and select a single transform to run, or you can run a group of transforms at once. You can configure a transform before the run or save a transform in your favorites list. Let's run the mirror:\email addresses found transform at this time. The results start to come in about a minute. Let's see some more about Maltego while we're waiting. There are different graph types you can choose to see the results. If you zoom out the graph under 30%, the entities are shown as the dots instead of meaningful symbols. All the colors of the dot point to a specific type: email addresses, websites, domain names, and more. You can see the color legend in the lower right corner. The results of the transform we ran a minute ago are here now. You can use the toggle full screen button or simply press Alt plus Enter buttons to toggle the graph to full screen. You can select the email addresses node and see the collected email addresses listed in the Detail View window.